morning and welcome to Village in Motion. We have an exciting brand new program for you today. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Vantage Point. This is a brand new program for Village in Motion on Channel 6. It will be a new monthly series. I am your host, Marcia Boyles, and I'd like to introduce my co-host and co-producer, Kathleen Taylor. Kathleen is also our social work manager.
Right.
Welcome, Kathleen.
Hi.
Kathleen and I have been doing a series on social workers called That's Life, and in the course of doing that, we discovered that there were subjects and ideas that were coming up consistently in the program. And so with the help of several groups of residents, we have identified a number of issues that are of great importance, we hope, to the residents. And we're going to have a series each month of a one question or one issue program. And these are issues that we think will generate some really exciting and interesting and hopefully fun kinds of discussions. We're starting out today. Kathleen, tell us the topic.
The question is, who are we now that we're old? So that's kind of a good topic to start with for sure, because we do really not know what the answers are.
And we all are old here.
We're thinking that we're going to maybe be able to generate some interesting talk amongst ourselves and then amongst the residents, maybe some dinner table talk later or talk in the hallways, because I think that our whole point is we really want to be able to get people thinking about some of these topics that I think have a universal impact on all of us.
All right, well said. And as the name of the show implies, we're hoping that there's going to be divergent points of view. Mm-hmm. Now, we have this morning two of our two first guests. We're very, very pleased and honored to have. And let me tell you a little bit about our guests. Dorothy Massey is well known here at Green Spring as the longtime editor of Memories. But what is not as well known about Dorothy is that she comes from a educational and civil rights background. She was in the trenches back in the 60s and 70s, going down to the South to help integrate public schools. And you were down there, Dorothy, when it was still a dangerous place to be.
Oh yes, I was. I didn't realize. I mean, I was. That was not something that was on my mind, but it was a dangerous place.
Yes, it definitely, it still certainly was at that point in time. John Carl is our second guest, and John is also well known in the Green Spring community. In your case, it's as an actor and director. Also teaching, I think, all the different dance groups known to man, and some probably not known to man, that are here at Green Spring.
Mainly line dancing.
Mainly line dancing. Thank you, John. And chimes as well. So, what is again not so well known about John is his political activism roles, which I have judged, John, that you have played all your life.
Yes.
So, those are our two guests, and we picked you because not only does the community know and respect you, but also because you have rather interesting and passionate points of view on this particular topic. So Dorothy, I think we'll start with you. Who are you now that you are old?
Well, one thing I am is an accumulation of all the me's that preceded this person sitting here. You don't lose those cells. That you do accumulate all your different personas, I believe, and I guess that's a good thing. I realize that I'm in a world here at Green Spring that we have mutual feelings, and we're all on this journey. And for many of us, it is a journey, and it is an adventure, because every new year, every new week, you find a new aspect of being old. Some of that is not so good. Some of that you see with you think greater wisdom. Perhaps you have a better slant on how to deal with life. But then, so I think that this age changes every day, and I'm dealing with it as best I can. And I think probably the best tool you can use is humor.
Do you feel finished?
Sometimes I feel finished and over, and my shelf life long gone. I sometimes feel that, but I also feel that I have a lot of thoughts in me that I enjoy. I'm never bored. When I'm with my children and their children, my grandchildren, I feel that I have a lot to impart to them. Sometimes they seem interested in knowing about me, and sometimes I really think I need to sit in the corner. But in general, I don't feel finished. I'm still a work in progress, and will be until my last day.
Right. That's what I'm sort of recalling. Is I think when you're younger, sometimes I think that you look ahead and you go, okay, at 30, for example, I'm going to have my whole life together. You know, I'm going to know exactly how things are going to proceed from now on. I'm going to be in control. And as you get older, I think you realize that you do continue always to grow, and you are never a finished product.
Nor are you ever really in control.
Or you're never in
Because you don't know
control.
what will be the next thing.
Exactly right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's very well put. John, how about you? Who are you now that you're old?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize I was old until I was invited to appear on this program.
Oh, I see. Hon, I'm so sorry. Was this a secret?
It wasn't a secret, but I just had never entered that realm of thought before. I think it's because I'm very active, and I love dancing, and I love performing on stage, and I love doing very active things. I like playing pickleball when I'm able. And so to consider what it is to be old, I really had to sit down and think, well, I'm old. At 76, I guess I'm old. I thought about it when I was 50 and got an invitation to join AARP. And then I said, but is 50 old? When is old? I mean, at 70, at 65, what is that category? So I don't know where I fit in that. I just know, like Dorothy, that every day and every week is a new opportunity to explore something new. And being ill recently and off my feet with sciatica and having pain in my right leg, I started to think about, well, supposing this was it, this was forever, that now you're going to need a cane or a walker or a motorized chair. What happens to your dancing and to your appearing on stage, which seems to be part of my personality and what I do and what I enjoy. So I started thinking, gee, this would be a great time to take up watercolor painting or hieroglyphics or sign language or, I mean, there are so many things out there for me to do.
Something more passive.
Something that I can do within my physical limitations. So I'm still working on what it means to be old.
Well, and of course, I'm sure you've heard the saying that 80 is the new 60. So we can all smile about that. Dorothy, are you finding this with yourself too, that when you think of aging, I mean, I know I certainly do as well, that you're thinking about compensatory kinds of activities that as you physically are unable to do certain things, that there are new things that will
Well,
be equally appealing?
I've never, I think basically I'm rather lazy. And so I've never really had to worry about any way to occupy my time. As long as I have a book to read, as long as I have friends with whom I can laugh and enjoy life and talk about all kinds of things, people and ideas, I've never felt at a loss for things to do. When I first retired, I think I was what you then called young old. I was in my early 60s. And when I progressed into where John is, which is sort of almost old, it's sort of, he's still a newcomer to old age. And then, but where I am now, I'm old. And yet, I still have a mental energy, but I don't get bored, and I don't say, what am I going to do with myself now? So I think that as you grow older and older and older, you get a certain perspective on life that is more, maybe more leisurely, maybe a little more profound, maybe a little more understanding of other people. But also you realize when you're with young people, you're in a separate world. There is a invisible fence between you and they're in another world and you're in another world. And when I come back here to Green Spring, I'm with my equals, and we have great mutuality, and it's a joy to sit and talk about things that we share, because we all have shared interests and memories. We lived through 3/4 of the last century, and that was a fairly rich history. And so we have all of that within us. So in some ways, you get poorer in your ability to do physical things, but I believe you get richer in what you carry inside.
Very nicely put, Dorothy.
You brought up something that I sort of wanted to follow up on a little bit is we know the American culture in particular is very youth-oriented and based in the idea that the young are the ones that are doing the important things. And I think that as we get older, I think how people look at us can change. And sometimes, we still feel very alive and vital, but are we devalued or discounted? The whole historical heritage that people bring as they get older, I sometimes think that our culture doesn't really respect that as much as it could too. So could you all speak a little bit about how others see you and how you might react to that?
Well, I'll just say that when I talked about being in a separate world, yes, people do see me differently. And I remember how I was when I was a young person and I knew somebody who was my age, which is 89. Might as well admit it. But there is something in this society that makes people be a little bit ashamed to be old. And they don't want to look old and they don't want to seem old. But you really ought to have a pride about it. And I also know that when I saw old people, if they were smart and if they had things to say that were clever or interesting, I would think, oh, aren't they darling? They're just so delightful. As if there was some miracle that this old person could actually walk and talk. and I realize that people have that same attitude now toward me. And for example, every year I go to a Christmas Eve party where there are about 20 or 30 people, many of them, everybody younger than I. And the young people, some grandchildren, they're all either in their 30s, 20s, 30s, or 40s. and I realize that I'm looked at like an old heirloom. and if I'm clever, I mean, like the best compliment they can give me is, "Oh, you're so sassy." And
Yikes.
so at any rate, I love that. I love that in a way, but it gets a little tired sometimes.
Do you
And
feel like
and-
you're more than cute and sassy?
Yes, I mean, talk to me like I'm a person here. It took me a long way to get here, so you treat me with that kind of respect,
Yes.
and I'm not sure that is always. And then people say, "Oh, let me do something for you." Well, I should appreciate that, but I don't want people to do things for me.
Right.
John, what about you?
Well, I was thinking about that, and also the age at which people assume you're old, and when we decide we're old. And I've realized now, because of my life, which was, I started out as a music teacher in public schools, New Jersey, and and went into performing, and I performed for 35 years. So I didn't have that break called retirement.
No.
I did not have that, because you work all the time, maybe in dribs and drabs, but you work constantly. I'm still working,
Yeah.
only it's more on a volunteer basis here at Greenspring with the players, but I'm still doing the same thing I did all of my life. So I haven't had that formal break with a career and family, and I wonder what people think when you're retired. Does your switch go off in your head and now you're senile and stupid?
I know.
You know? Now, living here is very different than dealing with or interacting with younger people, because mainly we're with our peers here. So they're much more friendly about being older. And of course, it's wonderful when someone would come up and say, "You don't seem old enough to even belong here. How old are you?" Or "How long have you lived here?" And you take it as a compliment. But they also are talking to you as an equal, because we're all in the same boat. And I think we are defined more by our attitude than anything. And my attitude happens to be very young and optimistic, and let's have fun and let's laugh, and because
And you've continued to be productive.
yes,
And that's
I
what
hope
I'm
so.
hearing you say
Yeah,
you think
absolutely.
is a critical element to this, John. Do you find when we go to the outside that sometimes the attitude of people is a little disconcerting? I was in a CVS a couple of months ago and was disconcerted by the fact that the young clerk, probably in his 20s, said to me, "Dearie, just wait." And I might have said, "Honey buns, I'm not your dearie," which startled him enormously, but I got his attention. So I do think we find that, and John, I agree with you. I think here it is so much easier because we're all in the same boat, as it were.
correct.
So we appreciate each other, and there's no real discrimination, or not much at least, I think. Although, Kathleen, you brought up at one point the idea of some prejudice against those who are aging less well, which
Right.
probably is pertinent to some degree and probably a whole nother discussion.
Right, but I think I think that when we talk about aging well, we really don't know what we're talking about. But ideally, it's, your body's sort of holding itself together, your mind's holding itself together, and that means you're doing well. You're one of the blessed ones, but
True.
but everybody, that's DNA to a certain extent. That's not, that you really did anything in particular to be able to age in that way. You just got lucky to a certain extent, though we know eating well and exercising are all important, but still, it's kind of the luck of the draw. But I do think that there is some some sense of, if people are aging well, they kind of are better than people that are aging
Yes.
less well. Yeah, you
I'm
sense that too?
sure that is true, so that you feel a little bit hostile sometimes to people who are aging better than you.
Oh, do you, Dorothy?
Yeah.
No, that's
No,
quite a confession.
when I read about a woman who's my age and older, and people and they're running or they're playing tennis still, and I don't think I really want to know them. I feel that, and actually I don't know personally anybody like that, but I hear about them.
Right.
And on the other hand, I remember a woman who we all loved, the one who was the actress, the beautiful little woman. What was her name, John?
Virginia Scott.
Virginia Scott.
Virginia Scott.
Well, she was absolutely a beautiful woman, and she was about 95. She was acting, and her voice was wonderful. I didn't feel that way about her. I just simply adored her. She was what I would like to be, and so I do admire people who have taken their old age with honesty, with realism, and with humor. And she did all those things.
Yes, she did.
And I think that is the real achievement, is to make people feel glad to be in your presence, and not to feel sorry for you because there's nothing in your and nothing in your personality to seem pitiful. And I don't think that age should be something that is separate and apart. And I mean, we're all human. And as I say, I think probably as our lives move on toward age, each step we're trying to get to be successfully more of a human. And it took me a long time to get where I am and to be the kind of person that I think that I'm okay with. One of the things you have to do, and this sounds a little egotistical, you got to learn to be your own best friend. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not, nobody else will be. And so you accommodate yourself to what you are. And for once in your life, you decide, I don't really have to adapt myself to this person. This person can adapt himself or herself to me. And that sounds a little bit egotistical, but we have egos, and we need to exercise them.
And we still have egos as old people,
Of course
is
we
what
do.
you're saying.
Of course we do.
Uh-huh.
And we still care about how we appear to other people if we're healthy. And that, of course, if we're healthy, we're lucky.
Right.
I think along those lines, one of the things I've discovered since living here is that a very important part of being who you are is taking care of yourself and getting the proper rest and nutrition. And if you need a power nap every afternoon, take it.
Yeah, I agree with you, John.
And I've also learned living here that there's a very important word that I learned, like a new language to me, and that's the word no.
Yes, yes.
Because before that, I would bend myself into a pretzel trying to accommodate everybody. And now I can very easily say, no, I have too many things on my plate that day.
All right, that is an extremely important lesson, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, that's definitely a value of getting older, is if you finally give yourself permission to put yourself first, right? Because most of your life you're not doing that. You're either driven by your work, or driven by your family, or driven by some
All of
other
the
kind
above.
of some kind of other thing that you think is most important. But really, we are most important as individuals. I guess I'm sort of finding it interesting that we're trying to make a case for why it's okay to get older, but it is, right? But we feel like we have to, show that there's value in people as they get older. It shouldn't be that way, but it seems like that's where we're at right now, a little bit in our culture again.
Well, I know that, as I recall, my own mother, when she didn't get to live to be very old. She was only in her 70s, but she became very proud of being that age and looking walking as well as she did. And I guess I am too, but I also have a slight other feeling, which is I kind of feel sometimes that I need to apologize for hanging around so long. I mean, here I am and I still am here. Well, I think that maybe quite a few old people might feel the same way. We are all living to be so much older. And we are partly being kept alive by the miracle medicines available to us, and the fact that we are taken such good care of here at Green Spring. We are, where if we were living alone, if I were living alone, if I were living in my condominium where I was before I moved here, after my husband died, I would probably not go out a lot. I would see my family from time to time. All of my children, all of my relatives who are contemporary are gone. Most of my people who were my lifelong friends are gone. So I would probably become something of a recluse. I can't be here. I found and made a new world for me when I came to Green Spring.
Yes, Dorothy, I think that's really the crux of the matter here at Green Spring, that we can make a new life and still be productive, as John is pointing out. In fact, so productive that you get asked to do too much.
Yeah.
And I suspect you do as well.
I have. And I just
I
gave
find
up
that as
one
well.
thing when I stopped being,
Yes.
when I resigned from being editor of Memories.
Yes.
I decided it's time
And you've
for
done
a
that
new-
for 8 years, hadn't you, Dorothy?
8 years, yes. And loved it, but everything, you need to quit when you're still ahead.
But don't you think being able to contribute really is the essence of our good health, both physically
I do
and
believe
emotionally?
So. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You guys have actually sort of stumbled on, I don't know how many of you heard of the Blue Zone, but there are different areas in the world where people are living into their 100s, and there's sort of some common aspects to those areas. But certainly a sense of purpose, and certainly the social aspects, connections to others, are two of the key
Are they?
components. Yeah, and I think here at Green Spring you do have, as you were saying so well, you do have that ability to continue in those areas. So we've stumbled on it. We have our own little blue zone here.
What a nice way of putting it. I have never heard that phrase, blue zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting. And of course, DNA has got to play a huge part in that
Yeah.
as well. But
Says the biologist.
says the biologist, right? Oh shoot. Well, guys, this has been very interesting.
So yeah, it's been very interesting. Thank you so much for being here. It ended up being exactly what we hoped it would be, which is a really, really good, energetic conversation. And I'd like to thank you both for being here, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Okay.
Continue the conversation.
Continue the conversation, and we will continue the conversation. We don't know what the conversation is going to be, but next month on the next Vantage Point. So hopefully people will stay tuned.